Hello. Hello, floralpreneurs. I know there's a lag, so maybe you haven't heard me yet. Hello, hello. If you're out there, give me a little thumbs up or a comment just to say hi, so I know I'm not all by myself. And if I am all by myself, that's all right. You can watch this on a replay later. I am very excited, truly and genuinely, to be here today to talk about your business. I'm all up in your business because I really think that this is like the perfect time of year to do a quick check-in. So I was just checking to see if I'm live, and I am. Hey, Carissa, thanks for letting me know you're here. So like I was saying, I'm very excited about it because April, right, is coming up in a few days. It's kicking off our second quarter of the year. I don't know how that it is like March ending, but it is where we are. Okay. And so now that we're here, what we want to do is take a little looky loo. What's happening? Because a lot of times we're kind of led by feelings this time of year because it's no longer the new year, right? It's not the end of last year. It's no longer the new year. It's just sort of life. And we kind of start to run on feelings. And I want us to just zoom out and deal with real life facts and numbers for just a second. I'm not going to keep you here long, and I promise it's going to be worth it. Again, like I was saying, the reason I'm excited to be doing this is because I did this myself. As some of you know, hey, thanks for tuning in. As some of you know who are like in some of my programs or like Art of Good Business, I never teach you something that I don't do myself. So anyway, this is some work I did, and it was very clarifying. Are my sales down like I thought and felt they were? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. However, now I have a really good sense of by how much, right? And where they're down and what I'm kind of going to do about it. All right. So that's what we're going to do today. I hope you're going to feel that same kind of clarity. I put a little something in the description for the video. If you're, multitasking right now, don't worry about it. But I made this little it's over on my blog right now. So realflowerbusiness.com. If you just click on the blog, you'll see the post. I made this little floralpreneur like self-assessment. So you can download it. We'll go through it in a little bit. And the reason I want you to download it, if you can print it out, there's like actually like this little cool little like diagram thing that you can kind of color in to give yourself a sense of like where you're at in your business at the moment. Okay. So I think it's kind of cool. And it's over on my blog, realflowerbusiness.com. Click on the blog link and you'll see it there. And the reason you'll see it there is because it's the most recent blog post. If you're watching this later, you'll just need to hit the link in my description here because there's a direct link to the post. Okay, that's out of the way. So first quarter business plan check-in. First of all, for anybody who's new here, hi, welcome. I'm Allison Ellis of realflowerbusiness.com. I have been a floral designer for over 30 years. I have been running my own small home studio floral design business where I focus on weddings for the last 22 years, going on 23. And I teach floral designers how to run the business side of their business with more confidence and more clarity so you can make more money and work less hard, because that's what it's all about. Okay. So again, we're here for this first quarter check-in. It's the end of the first quarter. Where are we? So I have some notes here for you. We're going to go through. First thing to do, look at your numbers. Look at your numbers real quick. So what are your sales stats so far? And what are your projected sales for the rest of the year? So it's really simple to do this. If you do events like I do, if you do weddings and events, add up the events that you have booked on your calendar. Those are your sales projections. You should do this every year, by the way, which is why I often do like a check-in like this kind of early in the season. Check in, make sure you have all of your events lined up with what those minimums are. If you set a minimum on each event, I set a minimum on every event. I know the least amount that everybody's going to spend based on that minimum. So I can get a sales projection of where I'm going to end up, right? So that's something I did today. So barring any kind of cancellations or anything, unforeseen, those will be your sales based on your events. Find out what that number is, okay? So that's the first thing. Look at the numbers. Next thing I want you to do is reevaluate your profit goal. So, how much do you need to make to be comfortable? Because we have different ranges. Sometimes we are like, oh, things are down, but we're comparing it to like the busiest year that we had, say, post COVID, right? Sometimes we need to kind of reevaluate what's real, what was a blip, and where we can go from here. Okay. So after you look at your numbers, reevaluate your profit goal. Okay. Because our sales, that's one number, but the amount you keep, that's a different number. And that's the number that I want you to focus on here. So, how much do you need to keep to be comfortable? And then what is your desired goal or your dream goal? Because we want to always have that kind of number as well. And for some people, for some of you who have been tuning in with me for a while, you're like, yep, I've heard her say these things before. But you will be very surprised how many people I talk to, or maybe you won't be surprised actually, how many floral designers that I talk to in a one-on-one and I say, what is your income goal or how much do you want to pay yourself? And even though they've been running a business for years, they don't know that number. Okay. So I want you to know that number. All right. And if you don't know that number, now you know you're not alone. There are lots of other people who are in the same boat. But what do you need to be comfortable? What's the dream number? And then are you on track for either one of those numbers right now? Okay. So just reevaluating the profit goal. The next thing I want you to do is take a look at your income streams. This is something I like a broken record with this because it's so important to staying focused on what moves the needle the most in your business and what keeps your business in business. Okay. And that is what are your income streams? These are the buckets. I like to think of them as buckets that bring money into your business. So that could be weddings. It could be weekly subscriptions. It could be your retail business. What are the buckets? Where are people buying from you? And identify all of these buckets. For some of you, it might be you have got like 15 different ways that money is coming in. And for some of us, it's more like 2, right? So identify what those buckets are. Then what you need to do is identify which bucket is bringing in the most money. And I want you to consider the profit margin here because you can't just consider the sales. There are some people who have one of their buckets that brings in like a ton of money, but it's the thing that costs them the most to produce. So is that something you want to grow? Or like maybe, right, depending on the quantity of it, or do you want to look at maybe your second highest bucket and see what that profit margin is? And maybe that's a place to grow because you actually will make percentage wise more money in your pocket on those events than on the bucket that brings in a lot of sales, but the profit margin is lower. All right. Are you with me on that? Just give me a thumbs up or something in my comments so I know you're with me on that. Increasing sales is so often a goal that I really want you thinking about the profit being related to that as well. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on. So we've looked at our numbers. I'll recap real quick. We've looked at the numbers, right? We've reevaluated the profit goal. We've identified what your income streams are. We've identified what's bringing in the most profit. So what's the next logical step? How can you do more of that, right? How can you do more of that thing that's bringing in the profit? Another way I like to phrase this all the time is like, how do you lean into what's already working? Think of it that way, okay? Another thing to just sort of pause and ask at this juncture is there something that like you used to do in your business that you have stopped doing that maybe you kind of need to get back to? I have been guilty of this in all kinds of little ways over, I mean, look, over 22 years, right? Like I cannot have a perfect record. But yeah, there are some times where you go, hey, something's not going right here. But if you take a moment and you evaluate it, you go, oh, wait a minute. You know what I used to do? I used to always, whatever, attend a certain networking event that I haven't attended in 7 years, right? Or I used to always follow up with leads that didn't book and I got blah, 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 right? Like, what did you used to do that maybe you're not doing anymore? Just think about it because there's a very good chance if you have had some success in your business and then you have kind of like wonkiness going on, uncertainty, change, right? Whatever we want to call whatever's happening for many of us. As the market is shifting, as the demand is changing, as the way customers are interacting is different, right? All these things are happening at once. It's fun. It keeps us on our toes. But it's true, right? It's not just one thing, it's a lot of things that make this time feel especially kind of uncertain. In this time, think about what had been working. Sometimes we just need to go back to basics. It's just that simple, okay? I mean, it's not always that simple, but sometimes it can be. You go, oh, you know what? I forgot. I used to always include this particular statement with my proposals, and I stopped doing that. I'm going to go back to doing that. Easy, small shifts. But we need to like pull our head up and look around. When we're working in our business, which so many of us do, it's hard to work on the business and have that kind of zoom out perspective. So that's what a little session like this is meant to help you focus in to do. How can you zoom out and find that little, gem of knowledge that's already inside of you, right? Something that you already used to do, okay? And also leaning into what's working, okay? Next question for you is, are you going to expand your offers? That's what we can think about at this point. If we know what the buckets are, we know what's bringing in the most money. If we're looking to expand, do we need to expand our offers? Do we need to offer something different, something new, something more? Maybe it's a service. Maybe it's a whole nother line of work that you do, right? But that would be the thing to look at. Do you need to add weddings? As a wedding florist, it always blows my mind when I meet like flower shop owners who don't do weddings, but I get it. I worked at a lot of shops that didn't do weddings. If you wanted to increase your sales, you could start doing weddings, right? For people who maybe do weddings like I do, perhaps you want to expand into doing funeral work as well, because you want to have a more consistent, like weekly availability. Or maybe you're a farmer who has, a certain type of subscription, but you want to expand it to something else, right? Maybe they come for workshops or something else. So yeah, think about that. Are you going to offer something new, something more, something better? And then the question following that is, what will it cost you to expand? Okay, because will you be able to like 4x your investment? Like if you invest, $3,000 in a workshop, will you be able to make $12,000 or $15,000 from what you learn at that workshop? Or are you going to like invest in rental items? Is this your year? I'm going to offer, what I can do to expand my offerings is offer rentals, and I'm going to rent structures. Okay, well, how much is it going to cost you And how many weddings do you need to actually book to make that back, right? We just want to look at real costs of doing business here, okay? Or is the way you want to expand your offering, is it going to mean that you need to hire another person? For example, if you do own a shop and you don't currently do weddings, will you need to bring in another designer, or will you need to bring in another person to be at the shop because now you won't have anyone at the shop on the Saturday, right? So these are the things you want to consider, because then you know, how many of these do I need to sell to break even? How much do I need to charge to make this worth it? We don't want to just work harder. We want to work smarter, okay? So the bottom line question there is really just, what will make this worth it? What makes it worth it to offer this? What are you going to get from it? And then finally, like, what do you need to work on next? Where do you go from here? So this is where I'm going to walk through this little Floralpreneur assessment that, again, you can download over on my blog at realflowerbusiness.com if you would like to have a hard copy for yourself. But the idea here is, again, just a first quarter check-in. We just want to be honest about where we're at right now in our business, because when we can identify where we are at, makes it easier to figure out what our next step is. Okay. So the goal here is just to evaluate the current state of your business and then decide, maybe you identify 1, 2, 3 areas that you're going to work on over the next 30, 60, 90 days or the rest of the year. Okay. You ready to dig in? Okay. So if you download the sheet, you'll see that it's basically, we're scaling ourselves on a scale of 1 to 10. You're going to like self-rate on a scale of 1 to 5, not 10. On a scale of 1 to 5, where you fall, how you rate yourself in each of these categories. Okay. I think there's 8 here, maybe 10. If you have a piece of paper, it's the perfect time. Just give yourself a rating. Okay. So self-care, we're going to start it. Self-care. How are we defining self-care? Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, again, 5. I don't know. I was going to do 10 and it was too many circles. Okay. Because I have this little graphic. The 10 rings was making me dizzy. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 meaning you're like really struggling in this area, and 5 meaning you are confident and really dialed in, where are you on the following? So 1 is self-care. So we're going to define that as developing as an entrepreneur, taking care of physical and mental health. Your business really relies on you, so this is important. And finding joy in life. All right, I want to give you a minute. Self-care on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 meaning you're struggling with this, 5 meaning you are like dialed in. Where are you on self-care? Okay, next up is your flower care and design skills, because these are really, really important. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your ability to create beautiful designs and provide quality product? How do you rate your design skills? Scale of 1 to 5. Again, 1 is you're struggling. 5 is you are crushing it. Okay, next is finances and profitability. My favorite. Francis, hey, Francis, just 2.5. Hey, you know what? You're just getting started. Finances and profitability, understanding your current financial state and improving it. How would you rate yourself? 1 is you're struggling. 5 is you are crushing it. Understanding your current financial state and improving it. And if you want to go through all the things we just did in the beginning of this exercise, in the beginning of this session, and then come back and answer this, you might find that you are more on top of your finances than you thought once you just take a minute to do the check-in that we just did. Okay. All right. Next up, sales. How would you rate yourself on confidently closing quality clients? Confidently closing clients. 1 is you're struggling, 5 is you are closing them like a boss. I actually gave myself like a 4.5 on this one. I feel like I feel like I need to reevaluate myself on that one because things like I said, people are booking differently now. So it's kind of interesting. I find that I need to adjust as well. Yeah, good to do the check-in. Design skills 4. Awesome, awesome. All right, so systems and your workflow process. So what I mean by this is like the way you lead your clients through the process and then your process behind the scenes. So creating clear steps to guide customers and processes that provide functionality. Where do you rate yourself on this? 1 is you're struggling, 5 is you are crushing it. If you need any help with systems and processes, by the way, I got lots of wedding templates and things of that nature to help you so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Um, Next up, brand voice. All right, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you rate yourself? This means consistently sharing your unique perspective and your core values with clients. This is what we call your brand voice. What makes people know it is you and your business that is sharing your point of view? So, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you struggle with being like vocal as your voice of your brand, and 5 meaning like you know exactly what to say, you know exactly what your brand sounds like. It takes a long time to get to a 5. So, do not fear if you are not at a 5. Awesome. Okay, so then marketing is next. Where do you rate yourself on promoting your offerings with an intentional strategy? So we're not just putting something up on Instagram and crossing our fingers. Like you really know what your strategy is. Promoting your offerings with an intentional strategy in a compelling way. People respond and go, "Hey, I loved that post you did. I loved when you shared something. I loved your story. I loved your blog post. I loved the flyer." I don't know, right? We still make flyers every now and again. It does happen from time to time. So 1 is you're struggling with marketing and 5 is you're crushing it. And marketing is one of the harder things. So again, don't judge yourself too harshly if you're not at a 5 with that. All right. Yeah, Francis is a 4 on systems. And your templates, especially the legal contract one, are awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah, those little things that go a long way, keeping ourselves professional. All right, next up, speaking of which, the next one is leadership. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 5, improving as a leader so that your business can grow. How do you rank yourself? 1 is you're struggling, and 5 is you are crushing it. You are constantly improving as a leader, and your business is growing. Leadership. And I want to clarify something. Leadership applies to oneself. I know so many of us work alone, totally, totally alone, but leadership applies to oneself. We must lead ourselves to the computer, to the class, to this session right here on YouTube. Again, thank you for joining me. This is self-leadership is part of this. This is not just, oh, I don't have a team, so leadership doesn't, apply to me. Awesome. I passed out cards and landed my first gig. Awesome. I love hearing that. That's awesome. We got to do it, right? They still are valid. People are still passing around the business card. We still need to show up. And what really happened is you didn't just put a card somewhere and leave it there and cross your fingers like an Instagram post, right? You went out there and you put it in people's hands. So well done. All right, next up on our list here is people and team building. Again, because leadership is different. Leadership we can apply to even just ourselves, but how do you rate yourself on the people skills and team building? So that means curating a team that's excited about your brand and thriving in their positions. Your employees should be your brand ambassadors, right? They go out in the world and say how amazing it is, how great your product is. That's what you really want to do. Yeah, right. Cool. You're welcome. Yeah, well done. Okay, so team building, 1, you're struggling with team building. 5 is you're an excellent, excellent team builder. This is definitely one of my weaknesses because I'm a little solo. I am a rock. I am an island. So yeah, I mostly work alone, but I try. And I do have some people who are on, on some monthly payments with me who work for me. And it does make my life easier, even though it's hard to be like, they're my team. They are. They're my supports. Okay. So yeah, anybody you're paying to help you. And then finally, how do you rate your customer experience? This is like last but not least, leading clients through an exceptional experience with your company. How do you rate yourself? Leading them through an exceptional experience with your company. 1 is you're struggling with this. You still don't know how to lead them in a way that like dazzles and delights. And 5 is you are knocking their socks off. You deliver customer service with style, and your clients are thrilled. All right. So that's it. Those are the questions. Again, you can download this on my blog. And the only reason to do that at this point would be you can now shade in like each of these categories where you fit, where you rank yourself. It just sort of gives you a little visual, what to work on first, because 4 questions to just wrap this up for you. And then if you have any questions, you can let me know. The very end of this little PDF that I made for you is just to just take 10 minutes at the end of this, okay? Just take 10 minutes to brainstorm your next steps from here. So here are 4 questions I have for you. Which area or areas will you focus on improving and growing this year? It's really important to set reasonable expectations for yourself and to not be somebody who's going, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it all, right? Anything that's not a 5, I'm improving all of those things this year. Because then what ends up happening is none of them get improved. All right. So I want you to think about which areas you'll focus on improving and growing this year. But think about it in a way that is not just, I am a superwoman, I'm a super person, I can do it all. Okay. Next question I have for you is, what are the benefits of working on yourself as a business owner? So important, right? Because again, you are so important to your business. It's like the self-leadership thing, right? We have to show up, we have to do the thing, we have to put the business cards in somebody's hand. So what are the benefits of you being more you? Okay? Being more of a leader, being more confident in your own business skills. And then which one area, just one, will you pick to try to level up in the next 30 days? Because like I said, I've invited you here because it's the end of the first quarter. And that means as soon as it's April 1st, we're in the second quarter and we are off and running, baby. And so when that happens, right, you go through this imaginary marathon line, right? We've gotten through the first quarter, now it's the second quarter. What's the one thing that you want to be focused on based on everything we talked about today that's going to move the needle for you? All right. What is the one thing? And then I want you to answer this final question of how will your business be impacted for the better once you improve these areas? Because again, it's easy to set a goal or to identify a weakness. But what we really need is the motivation to follow through. And I think it's important to sometimes just actually put yourself in the place of this has already happened, right? Imagine you have already figured out. So, Carissa says working on branding and marketing. Awesome. So, just imagine that you do have that to the place you want it to be. What looks different? Okay. And it might be a big thing or it might be a little thing, right? It might just be like, my Instagram looks like hot, right? Or it might mean I have sponsored, a local concert or something, right? And I'm one of the sponsors and I'm reaching this huge local market. It could just be I have toned down the way that I'm talking instead of just following all the trends that people are doing. I'm talking less, but what I'm saying is more meaningful, right? So, what does it look like when you improve those areas and use that as your motivation to really like shape the change that you want to make? All right. Yeah, Francis says, knowing what I need to focus on helps me not stress about doing it all. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And you said you recently decided to pay somebody to help you with a workshop to make an exceptional event, a tough but important decision. Yes. You know, when we're doing something, you can do it well or you can do it cheap, but you can't necessarily do them both at the same time, right? And so that's where sometimes we really do need to zoom out, and when we have our priorities, what matters more, doing it cheaply or doing it well? And the answer isn't always going to just be doing it well. I'll be honest. Sometimes it's going to be, you got to do it cheaply because this isn't, this isn't going to last forever. This is something we need to just bang out and get done. So, but you need to decide, right? But they don't go together. It's not cheap and well. Very, very rarely, very, very rarely are we cheap and well. So obviously, I want to make sure if you need help with anything, let me know. You can reach me. Realflowerbusiness.com is where I live online and you will find me there. But, the reason why we do this is because it's easy to want to learn how to design better, right? And to want to do fun stuff or to go to a workshop and to get really revved up about everything you learned, but then not implement anything. And so at a time right now where people are overall in the wedding industry, not just florists, by the way, but feeling like bookings are down and things are weird and customers are, there's a change in the air, right? The wind is shifting. This is just part of like life cycles in our business. It is part of like, as years go by, I've been in business for decades at this point. I started when I was one, but no, seriously, like when we are in business for decades, we see trends come and go. We see buying habits change. It used to be that I always just talked with a bride for a wedding. Then it used to be I would talk with a bride and her mother. Then it became just the mother. I know there are a lot of people out there who can agree, who are like, yes, I know what you mean. And then it became a bride would inquire, but didn't really want to talk that much. They just wanted to book it. They just wanted to book a florist and we'll talk later. So things change. And in part, they change because the market changes. In part, they change because you change. You change. So you invite different people into your orbit as you change. You welcome a different type of an energy. And as you level up and your client levels up, meaning higher budget, higher expectation, maybe, right? So does all of these things on this list, right down to self-care, because the more demanding the customer is, the more you need to be like, I'm not dealing with that right now because I got respect for me. It's my self-care time right now. I'm not picking that call up, right? And the leadership, all of this stuff needs to be stronger as you level up. So it never just becomes something that runs on autopilot. Anytime your business feels like it's running on autopilot, you are like you're missing something, okay? Because you can't just be on autopilot and think this is going to stay like this forever. Okay. Eventually, you start to lose altitude. Eventually, you start to miss some key signs that there is some change in the atmosphere, that people are buying differently because you're just not paying attention to it. Okay. Because, well, that's not how we do it. Well, our customers always act this way and this person isn't acting that way. Maybe everybody's acting different right now. I'm sorry to say, but maybe. Um, so again, if you need any help at all, let me know. You can get in touch with me, but you can also just go to realflowerbusiness.com and see what I have to offer there. I'm teaching live and in person here in April. If there's anybody who's looking to expand into doing weddings and you want to really know what you're doing when it comes to pricing, sales, booking, and all the basic elements of doing a wedding design and delivery, we are going to crush it in person this April. So we have 3 seats available if anybody wants to do that. But I want to end with where I started, which is why I'm so happy that I invited you here to do this, because I did this work myself today. And I have, I always have all these notes kind of hanging around. Do you ever do this? You take all these great notes and you like never look at them again. Look at all these fantastic notes I took, and I will never, ever look at it again. Well, I found one of these fantastic notes that I took at the end of 2023 to evaluate like my sales on everything, right? And breaking things down. So I have had on my desk here, like on my to-do list, oh, I'm going to do this again, right? I'm going to do this breakdown. So I finally did that today. And I sat down and I looked at the sales, and they're not as low as they felt like they were, right? And there's information within them, right? Well, while we were down here, we were up here. Oh, well, isn't that interesting, right? And you can really glean some actual information from it, including, like I mentioned, I want to take all my weddings, because I always set a minimum on every order. I want to take all my weddings at a certain point. Now's the time, right? Before we jump into that second quarter of the year, put all my weddings in a spreadsheet, or I put them all into just like my overall kind of budget for the year. Like, what am I spending and what's coming in? What is my estimated sale for weddings? So now I have that number, the exact number, done. Great. Here's what I can expect. And now I have an exact target of what I'm trying to make up. And is my goal to like exceed sales from 2 years ago? No, I wish I could tell you it was. I wish I could tell you, reach for the stars, baby. No. My goal is to make up that small deficit that I see on the account right now, like in terms of projections. Some of that's going to be I could spend less. If I spend less in certain areas, I can make that up. Okay. So this is where we get into reality and we go, what's true right now? And I feel good knowing what's true. Numbers are your friends, right? I teach that in flower math. The numbers are your friends. When you know what you're supposed to charge, when you know what your profit margin is supposed to be, when you know where you're actually at versus your expenses, then you can make a plan on how to move forward and know that it's not just, my weddings are down. It's like, hey, you know what? If I book 3 more, I'm good. Or you know what? If I just cut this one thing out that I've been kind of thinking about cutting out anyway, I'm like, fine. I don't even need to sell another wedding. Okay. This is the big brain energy. Okay. This is where we really just dial in to what is real. And I'm just going to end it with why I'm super extra glad I did this is because when I was going through and figuring out all of like the minimums for everybody and what was my projected sale on one of my weddings, I didn't have a recording of a deposit. And then I went to her folder, right? Following my workflow. Again, something you can purchase in my shop. As I follow my workshop flow, once somebody's booked, I confirm with them, they get a folder. So they wouldn't have a folder if I didn't get the deposit, but I don't know, I don't see it here. So I went to my email and I looked it up, and there's an email confirming the receipt of the deposit from early November. So I was able to go in, set that, make sure it's set so it's clear on my own records that I have received this deposit. Again, because I followed my workflow, I confirmed with them that I received it. So I have a paper trail. No harm, no foul. But I caught an error, right? I caught a misstep. And now, right, before April is where I want to catch those things. And it's where I want to be able to say, hey, if I didn't have the deposit, let's just say I didn't have the deposit. Hey, I don't have a recollection of your deposit coming in, right? And I would have to eat crow. But better to do that now than like 4 weeks before the wedding or 12 weeks before the wedding even, right? So, keep your house in order, keep your things in order, but also know that there's always going to be some change in the market. There's always going to be some change inside you, and there's always going to be something more to aim for. So just make sure you're aiming for the things that are going to like make the most difference in your life. Okay? And if you are the first question was on like rating your self-care. If you're like below a 3 on the self-care, okay, you're not even like halfway. I want to really encourage you to go, what am I doing? Okay. What am I doing? I want your self-care to be in like the 4 to 5 area. It's hard to be a business owner and be a 5 because we run ourselves ragged from time to time, but it shouldn't be all the time, right? We want to have some times where you do feel like a 5. Okay. At least one day a quarter where you're like, I am a total 5 on my self care. All right. So, really, really think about these things. Your self care, again, you are so important to your business that if you aren't taking care of yourself, you can't take good care of your business. You know, like, can I be so cliche? Be like, you can't pour out of an empty cup, right? But that's like the truth. You can't. So don't do that. Take care of yourself. All right. All right. I am going to wrap it here because I love to not just keep you for an overly extended period of time. Oh, wait, actually, sorry, I lied. I got a question from somebody. I got an email from somebody who said she was going to try to be here live. I don't know if you're here because I can't see your faces in the comments here, but the question was essentially that she has a shop. It is in an area that is like predominantly lower income. So it's not like a fancy town. Okay. And she has trouble knowing exactly how much to have in stock, right? Because orders are different each week. I think every shop owner can relate to this. But also, she's been told more than once, from what I can gather, that she should be charging more. All right. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I could do a whole nother live on this now that I think about it. But just briefly, you know, if customers, are telling you you should raise your prices, that is a huge red flag that you should be raising your prices. It is very rare that I am telling somebody they should charge more for something I am buying and enjoying. Okay. Very, very rare. Very, very rare. So I want you to think about that. The idea that, 60% of the town is not in like is in a lower income bracket is the way it was described. It's good to be sensitive to that in terms of being aware that like if you are going to sell to 60% of these people, then you do need to have things that are like within a reasonable range, right? But the other part of this is you could focus on the 40%. And what can the 40% afford? Because we can't always be the cheapest and the most affordable florist. I don't know if anybody's looking, you can see these callas behind me. I got these at Ye Old Trader Joe's. I got 10 of them for $5.99, which is a fraction of what I would pay at my wholesaler, right? So even if you did your very best to make your flowers affordable in your town for everybody in the town, right? You can't beat that, right? So that's where we need to know, is there somebody else where they can buy flowers cheaper? Because then maybe you can really focus on that 40% and what it looks like for your business to actually charge, what you're worth and what you need to. I also had another brief thought on that, which is because that does come across as like very just sort of like elitist, right? Like just focus on the 40%. It's good advice, okay? It's good business advice. But is it always like the way we want to interact in the community? Which is, I think, part of the vibe I got from the question. So I want to just add this. You can have something to make this more accessible to people in the neighborhood by simply having like a rainy day fund, like an overflow fund, like, the have a penny, give a penny, need a penny, take a penny. You can have a version of that for like a sliding scale for flowers for your shop. You can have a fund that's hey, you need a little, the pick me up fund. I don't know, right? The cheer me up fund, the flower fund, where your good customers can chuck in a few bucks and you now have money to be able to provide something for somebody who maybe does need a little break on the price. I don't know. But like we can turn our generosity into our downfall if what we're doing is not charging enough to pay ourselves, pay our staff, pay our rent. And then just briefly on the how much to order. I don't have a shop. I used to be a buyer for a couple of busy shops. And the truth is, we overbought a lot. We bought things at a very low price, but it was just too much product. So I think if I were going back in time, I would have fewer options, right? I wouldn't have quite, oops. Speaking of an empty cup, my coffee cup is still full. I wouldn't have as many different things. I wouldn't be trying to put things on sale for the lowest possible price, which is sometimes what we did at that shop. But I would be focusing on what are the things that are the most versatile that I can make the most number of things with. And then I would also be finding, where can I get those last minute flowers real quick if I need them, which, is easier said than done sometimes. But again, from the email that I got, the example was like, sometimes somebody wants 2 dozen roses and I might not have 2 dozen roses because I wasn't planning to sell them. So what can you sell them instead, right? Hey, I'm calling for 2 dozen roses. Oh, wonderful. I don't have 2 dozen roses, but here's what we can do that's even better, right? How do we get them into what's, the perfect thing that fits them today, even if it's not, exactly what they had in mind. So, I know it's not the most helpful, but I do want to make sure, if customers are telling you you should be charging more, like that is like, hello, right? Wake up call. We have a fabulous little pizza place that opened here in my town. There was no close pizza place. Like by the time you get home, the pizza is always cold. You need to like reheat it in the toaster oven. Not the end of the world. Okay. Not the end of the world, but still. This place is so close that the pizza's like so hot when we get it home, right? It's so hot. It's amazing, right? But I'll tell you this. I would not tell them they need to raise their prices. I would not be like, you know what? You should charge more. I love it. I enjoy it. And it's not inexpensive, right? So if people are enjoying what you're offering and telling you to charge more, it's a sign, baby. Okay. I'm going to wrap it there. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Keep doing beautiful work. As always, if you have questions for me, reach out anytime. I'm at realflowerbusiness.com. And keep doing beautiful work. Keep moving forward in your business. Take a few minutes to do the actual work here. Take 10 minutes to do a little brainstorm on those 4 questions that we went through. It'll make a big difference in your business and your life, I think. At least I hope, because it did for me. So thanks for being here and giving me a reason to do the work. Oh, Jessica, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. Bye, everybody.